So go ahead, Adrian, give a brief introduction of yourself to let our viewers know who you are.
Yeah, just very quickly, I call myself a recovering senior executive from federal government, and I do mean recovering. And people have asked me, when is my recovery going to end? And I say, when I can shift the market by just sending a tweet, right? That's my big goal, right? When I can shift the marketplace, I can shift the stock price by just sending something out. That's what I'm about, right? And the question is, how do we do that, right? So my background is I was CIO for Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, for 6 years during the most horrific time in the agency, although COVID may be trumping that now, but during the traumatic hurricane season of 2017, Hurricanes Harvey, Irma, and Maria, I led all of the IT and technology response and recovery operations for the agency at that time. Prior to that, I was with NASA Goddard as the NASA Goddard CIO, where I ran all mission operations networks for anything destined for space. So normally when you saw the little kids in the background with the president around them speaking to the International Space Station, that was really over my wires. And then I spent 3 years at National Weather Service as the National Weather Service CIO, where I managed and led all of the US rights and access to weather data, to include some of the supercomputing side and ensembles where we generated the national forecast and then pushed that down to local end to be refined by local forecasters. And then I began my career at Department of Energy, where I stayed there for 17 years, led a lot of efforts around cybersecurity as well as environmental sustainment, and also started the environmental justice program with EPA way back when I first started and started talking to them with how do we engage state regulators and the like to look at cleanup standards around minority populations and folks that are at risk and underserved. So that's a quick intro, and toss into the other panels.
Hi, everyone. My name is Olayinka Odeniran. I am the founder of Black Women Blockchain Council, also known as BWBC. It's good to be here with everyone today. BWBC is a benefit organization that aims to educate as well as raise awareness about the blockchain technology. We also provide initiative to promote Black women in this space. We actually started in 2018 solely because back then when there was the Bitcoin conference back in Miami, there was a large amount of speakers who were male. And unfortunately, the after party ended up being at a strip club. And that caused a movement which spearheaded a lot of women being involved in this space. I started to look around and realized that there wasn't a lot of Black women in this space. And this time around, I didn't want us to be left out. So I created BWBC to do just that, to make sure that there's inclusiveness in this ecosystem that we're building. And we're also getting a part to participate in the revolution in the future that we're also building. One of the things that we've done so far is provide education. We are on Clubhouse. We have a room called What the Hell is Blockchain? It's very important for people to be introduced to the technology and not just a lot of the use cases. I think once people are attached to the technology and understand that a lot more can be built on this technology, we as people can be more creators. Another recent initiative that we've started is to increase the number of Black women blockchain developers in this space to 500,000 by the year 2030. As you guys are probably aware, there's a huge demand for blockchain developers, but there's a small supply. This is a way for us to be solution-oriented and be involved in creating the future. So we're very proud of that. It's not just for Black women, it's also for Black men, and it's for the entire diaspora. We want to make sure that as a global community that we're all involved and we're all participating. There is 2 tracks to that program. One of the track is, of course, the developer track, and the other side is solution architects. So if you're an individual that's in your industry and you've heard the buzz that your corporation is interested in blockchain, you can sit at the table once you go through this track and be able to dictate and provide information on how to spearhead implementing this technology into the infrastructure. So we're very proud of that. We're excited, and we're very excited to be part of this panel. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karen Mason. I'm a surviving student, parent, and educator of the New York City Department of Miseducation. I teach web design, animation, digital photography, and AP computer science principles to high school students. I've developed a curriculum over the past 20 years that has earned my school, the Brooklyn Studio School, no less than $1 million in state funding. We have experimented with augmented reality via the HoloLens, and we're about to embark on NFT development in my digital photography class. I worked on making my department and my curriculum state certified, resulting in our students being accepted into top computer science and art schools in the country. I take all of these skills and experiences and funnel it into as a UX designer and solutions architect, into my business Light Guide, and where we offer UX solutions for digital projects. And currently I'm working with musicians and artists, and we're creating an NFT experience. Yeah, so I'm working with international DJs and producers, and we're in our research and development phase of development. Yes, glad to be here.
Great. Sorry about that. Great. Let's have Charles and then Professor Shern to close. Charles, can you hear me? Let's go with Professor Shern, because I'm having some audio. I can't hear Charles at all. Professor Shern, please do an introduction.
Hello, everyone. I'm Todd Shern from the Howard University Systems and Computer Science Department. And my role here is multifaceted, but it really is to bring awareness to the value that Howard and HBCUs could potentially play in many of the initiatives that have been discussed thus far. One of the initiatives that we are engaged in at Howard is with Melanin Solar, which is seeking to link solar generated power with a new token that is BTC linked. And so we're working with governments and the World Bank, and there's a need for power. World Bank has an initiative by 2030 to have most of the world's population be accessible to power. So we're trying to work to satisfy that, and using blockchain in two areas. First, obviously in the investment space, but then secondly, as this negotiation or this trinket for peer-to-peer energy trading. That's it. Thank you.
And thank you. The last introduction, Charles.
Hey, Charles, you're on mute, I think.
Hello. I'm Charles Anchang from Odua Blockchain Solutions, and I am so humbled and honored to be here with you. I am originally from Cameroon, Africa, and I've been with Odua Blockchain Solutions since the genesis of it, since 2017. And we are the first Pan-African cryptocurrency with its own native blockchain. And we've been adopted by the African Diaspora Development Institute as the Pan-African cryptocurrency of choice. We are the #1 sponsor for the Wakanda One City of Return that will be taking place in Ghana, coming up December 2nd at the Cape Coast of Ghana. So we are a cryptocurrency with a message about bringing the people together and empowering them using blockchain technology. We are a cryptocurrency for all of us, our people on the continent, our people out of the continent who have been disenfranchised and have not had technology that could bring them together, create value for them, and assist them build wealth on blockchain. That's my introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a fairly large panel. Who wants to tackle the and everyone doesn't need to tackle this, who wants to tackle the criticism that is often in the mainstream news that proof of work blockchains and specifically Bitcoin are contributing to our global warming situation and not beneficial, and that's the reason why they should not be utilized.
I can say something about that if you don't mind. Okay. You remember when computers started back in the 80s, a computer was massive because of the technology that we had available back then. Now today, you can have a computer on your cell phone. Same goes with proof of work and proof of stake. Now, when Satoshi, when they started this blockchain platform, the block spacing to generate an algorithm that could create a new coin, they had to use proof of work because that was the technology they understood and they could use, which is very viable still. But as we evolved and we studied technology, we witnessed that proof of stake would deliver the same result in less time. And so proof of stake is a lot more eco-friendly because you wouldn't have, and it's low cost, you wouldn't have to generate as much electricity or consume as much electricity to generate the same result. So proof of stake is just an upgrade of the proof of work model. And it's more eco-friendly, and it's also better because of the inclusivity it offers. People who, especially for us like Odua, we're thinking about people of African descent, people in Africa that might not have access to electricity, to power. And we thought if we were going to create blockchain that would be adaptable to environments that were in remote communities, people that are in remote communities all over the planet, we have to make it accessible so that for the users, so that they could stake, they could mine the coin, and also stake, participate in staking. So proof of stake is a low-cost, more efficient method of mining, but it doesn't take away the value of proof of work. Bitcoin still stands its ground as a proof of work method. It would hold its value as a proof of, because that's the protocol it was created on. But we came on the Bitcoin protocol and we created something a little better because we had to adapt to technology. So the criticism is just, it's a debate, but that is just the way it is. When you create your technology, you could evolve, but the hard thing with Bitcoin is you just can't change the proof of work overnight, no, because that's the model that was created at the beginning.
I'm going to jump in just for the new people that are watching and have no idea what we're talking about. Just to give a brief vocabulary, Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency, and in order for it to dispense its coins, it said, "Hey world, if you want to lend some of your computer processing power, so basically like run software in the back of your computer, on an old computer or new computer, we'll have a system set up that randomly you'll be get paid for your sharing your computer processing power for any jobs that it does." Now, because Bitcoin was first, people quickly realized that the more power for your computer was, the more likely you were going to earn fragments of denominations of Bitcoin. So people just started using higher and higher end computers, and also having rack space at different places, using a tremendous amount of electricity in order to acquire this coin. And then you had conversations happening that maybe there's a better way that people can buy their way into a blockchain called proof of stake. Like you exchange your fiat for a certain amount, and because you're holding a certain amount, you have a certain amount of voting power in exchange. But it's very controversial. So, but proof of stake system. You can, there are ways in which people can earn more cryptocurrency by locking it away. Think of it like an IRA or 401k type model implied into the blockchain network. And so a way of dispensing funds that everyone either gets some free because the producer of the coin is giving it away, called an airdrop, or you can buy your way into a chunk. And it's as controversial as saying all these different positions, proof of work versus proof of stake, is as controversial as saying the Cowboys are the best football team that ever lived. Some people believe that, some people don't. The New York Yankees are the best baseball team that ever existed. Some people believe that, some people don't. The Williams sisters are the best tennis players. So we're getting into at least these two models, and there's a hybrid in between. There are people that are doing proof of work that are more green energy, low processing power computers, and they're having it so that you can build a protocol on top that has staking, so independent things. Think of these things as like, the blockchains are continents, but you can put little nations on them, so other protocols, and then within those little nations you can have little cities. So it's the same thing, just repurposed in the blockchain world, because everybody wants to customize and meet their community's financial needs. So does anybody have anything to add to that? Go ahead, Adrian.
I mean, this is, so I struggle with even this conversation, because if you look at the percentage of what blockchain represents from the standpoint of technology, data centers worldwide, why are we even talking about this, right? This is misinformation. I mean, it's a political argument to actually prevent people from entering into the blockchain sort of industry, investigating it, because they realize it's going to be disruptive to many of these markets that we have. So I even struggle with even having the conversation. That's why you saw me smile when you asked it, even though I know it's out there. And one of the things is after my life in government, I've started a nonprofit called the Smart Tech Nexus Foundation, which empowers faith-based organizations for social service delivery at the distant end using technology, blockchain, geospatial, the whole bit of it. But it's meant to keep the have-nots from joining this movement, and because they recognize it's going to level the playing field. And that's what I try to tell the ministers. I'm like saying, look, folks, we had a group that came to us like, what about this blockchain thing? We heard that it's. I was like, okay, number one, think about the amount of technology you use in your daily life, and you're trying to tell me that this little tool that, again, you can use on your phone, you can have your own rack at home, you can have your specific set of equipment that you can buy. But think about the number of data centers that are around the world, like a Dell or Amazon Web Services, and think about the amount of energy they are consuming. And why should we be focused on blockchain as this little entrant into the sort of the technology space? So we have to really, I want us to step back, and we also shouldn't react to nonsense, right? We can't make sense of nonsense. So I usually I put it to the side and I move forward, right? Because I can't waste that much time on it because I have so many other things to do. That would be my comment.
I 100% agree with Adrian. I'm shaking my head vigorously right now because he's saying nothing but the truth. He mentioned Amazon and stuff, but we also have the financial institutions. These individuals, they're using a lot of computational power as well, but no one is going to them and giving them that pushback, right? Because it's beneficial, right? So it's just another talking point, deter people from going towards decentralization, right? And it's effective because a lot of people are latching onto it. I mean, there's a huge ESG, environmental social governance movement, right? And a lot of the younger kids are really tuned in and focused on that too. Because I recall seeing like a young artist, they were twin sisters and they were young artists. And I told one of them that they should get into NFTs. They will make a lot of money. This is an opportunity for them. One of the pushback was NFTs, she's not really sure because of the environmental issue. And I'm like, wow, I'm like, well, I mean, I tried to give her a reasonable response to that. But at the same time, how can you push against that when the narrative has already clouded a lot of people's judgment? So I 100% agree with Adrian.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And just the quote, Malcolm X, the power of the media and their ability to make the innocent guilty and the guilty innocent. They control the minds of the masses. So, just to keep that in the historical perspective, we can't trust everything that comes out of the media. And we also have to teach like media literacy to the kids because we're getting it on all sides. And what's for the best interest of this country is sometimes thwarted by the media, which is being paid off by corporations. And this country's being left behind. Worldwide, everyone's on this. And now we're behind because, I guess banks and other corporations want to kind of hoard and control, so.
And
Yeah,
Karen, to your point, our Black and brown people are the farthest behind.
Yes.
I mean, even if you just take COVID-19 and the vaccine as I don't know where you are, anti-vax, vax, but the whole bunch of misinformation. I mean, it just tells you the power that media has on our young people's minds today, right? And we really have to be, like you said, wise consumers of information. And we're not teaching critical thinking enough in our HBCUs. And Todd, I'll get to you too on some of the HBCU stuff I'm doing as well. But I mean, we have to really begin to teach that as a skill set. You don't necessarily have to agree, but you at least have to be able to discern in a reasonable way. And right now, the sources that come out, they automatically trust them, right? And so you have to, and we know that there is disinformation out there, misinformation being populated throughout our networks, throughout our Facebook page, throughout all of our Twitter accounts. All of that stuff is happening, right? And so we have to really begin to educate our young folks as quickly and as soon as possible and make them wise consumers of information. And that's very difficult in this stance right now. So it really starts at home, and many people don't have that presence at home to even have that conversation, right? So we got to figure a way.
Right. And I know for me in my computer science class, like teaching coding, in all aspects, it's like I always tell my students that it increases your problem solving muscle, and you become a much more critical thinker. And a lot of times, because the whole curriculum around the country has minimized critical thinking, so now we elect who we elect and we accept information without questioning it because we don't even have, just like you said, Adrian, we don't have the skill set.
I also want to speak to the fact that this discussion that we're having right now about the environmental issues with Bitcoin really started from Elon Musk, right? An influencer who decided to use that as a way for him to move into Dogecoin and out of Bitcoin. Prior to that, I mean, nothing has changed since the time he purchased Bitcoin to the time he said all of a sudden, the environmental issue is a big factor for him to transition out. Nothing has really changed. There was always that component there, but all of a sudden it didn't serve his best interest, right? And now he's pushing Dogecoin, right? So it all goes back into that critical thinking. Like, how does it benefit this person? Because he's now doing this to move money from one area to the other, and it definitely benefits him.
And the irony of that is SpaceX. The fact that many of the people who kind of question, because we're not going with their particular crypto properties, many of the people who question whether or not Bitcoin is green or any other blockchains coming along, why do we need more proof of work blockchains are green? They also shoot rockets into space and trying to get people to, which is like probably the most ungreen thing they could do. I wanted to go back to Todd because I know Professor Shern has actually co-authored a green paper for why. What type of response, if you've ever had conversations with people about why, but Bitcoin in general, how do you counter this notion that there is a marketing campaign that has happened that has been a pushback to say, well, it's not really green, it's not for the environment? How do you actually counter that coming from an engineering perspective?
So I really can't say from an engineering perspective because I'm a consultant with Melanin Solar. So I'm actually pushing it forward, right? I'm pushing why from the point of view of its value for peer-to-peer energy trading. And so I will acknowledge potentially damaging or extensive energy use in the mining of Bitcoin. but from the perspective of our business, we're pushing the token as peer-to-peer trading currency. So what can I say? Businessman on this one.
All right, so you're the businessman, but essentially, I think that one of the things that WIVE did was the fact that they give the greatest weight to low processing power miners of Raspberry Pis and Odroids, and it's ASIC resistant, that you can't actually use those high-end gaming machines to any greater benefit, and then the fact that they're tethering it to solar energy credits. Means that they're merging the current solar energy into a fungible with Bitcoin cryptocurrency, that the wherever these solar panels are throughout the tropical regions, Africa and the Caribbean, are actually more beneficial than me in New Jersey. But where they are, that they're collecting these credits that they can bring to the marketplace, they have some fungibility out to Bitcoin. And if it has a correlation to Bitcoin, it definitely can have if the person prefers, a U.S. stable coin or something like that. There's just fungibility with something that they can pragmatically use in their respective countries in terms of, because if Bitcoin is not readily spendable, they can just get it in USD, Euro, Yen, the denomination of their nation, and actually the elements of their country that have to partake of cryptocurrency. Because if you're a real person and you're living in an ethnicity in which the primary ethnicity within your own community is really cattle, that doesn't translate well when you want to spend a school fee, because your child or your offspring are now in more urban centers. You can't necessarily readily sell a cow that quickly. You need some type of interaction with the currency based communities. So it gives rural people, miners, farmers, and others this entry into that central banking thus far has pretty much failed to provide, the unbanked, whether we're talking about Harlem or we're talking about parts of Kenya or Cameroon. Charles, you wanted to add something?
Talking about financial inclusion on blockchain is a very important aspect, especially when we're looking at blockchain communities. When we talk about, we are very privileged in America. We have power. When you wake up, you have electricity, you have hot water, you have cold water. Now, if you go to a country like Nigeria, which is one of the wealthiest countries in Africa in terms of crude oil, they're still heavily challenged with power supply, which is a big problem. So when you're talking about technology that's adaptable to a community, you must be able to be creative in creating technology that could bring these people back into the market. If you're looking at indigenous communities in Africa, people out in Australia and all over the planet, you must create technology that's adaptable to their environment as well. So proof of stake, as we're talking about, is actually very good for that kind of an environment. Why? Because some people might not have access to a computer, and they want to still participate in the staking pool. So they could also get included as participants in the gains of that particular platform without necessarily missing out of the opportunity because they are in an environment that is not well developed and they don't have consistent power supply. So those are things we should always consider putting behind our heads as we talk about the evolution of blockchain, the financial inclusion. The key thing is technology. How is technology in Africa going to assist people in Africa? Look at, is it 5G? How are we working on the continent? How are we working in the remote areas? Now we're having a lot of people from Polynesia that are coming together on the platform. How do we make our platform user friendly for them? Those are key things. So,
but when it comes to Cameroon and even other nations, how do you, in a proof of stake model, how do you prevent latecomers with abundant wealth from usurping all the smaller people who have entered the proof of stake maybe earlier, but just have limited funds. I think that's one of the major criticisms of proof of stake, is that you could get an Elon Musk or you can get a Charles Hoskinson to come in and they're lush with cash. And next thing you know, Cameroonians are even in their own blockchain are basically the minority stakeholders in that blockchain. So how is your coin actually preventing someone of greater means from coming in and saying, well, thanks for aggregating all these little small people. Now I'm going to buy up a chunk and now I'm going to make the decisions for it. So you have this window for colonization, French, British, American, Chinese, Russian, everybody except for African Americans, which we don't want to be the colonists anyway, but you have this opportunity, you put this window for a bunch of people to come over and say, yeah, thanks for getting things started. Now we run the show because we just bought this huge stake.
Oh, great. Okay. In our strategy, in our token strategy, we have been very, very conservative in making sure that we control to a great extent how we decentralize the distribution of the coins. So now we have just about 5 million coins that we still held in the vault. And we have a method in terms of how we complete the project. We have a method which we use. We won't allow one person to get a majority of the coins because we're trying to get a 51%, a decentralized blockchain, whereas no one person would have that kind of, you can check us on Blockchain Explorer, no one person can have majority at all time. That would make them so influential on the blockchain network. So far, we've been doing well with that strategy, and we're still working very conservative and we're very, very, very conservative in our strategy. As we complete the project by the end of the year in terms of mass adaptation, if you look at our internet at oduaexplorer.com, you would see the distribution of our coins, and you see that there is no one person. Now, with that limited supply and the small amount we have, we still are trying to the best of our capacity to make sure we limit so that the distribution should be much more decentralized. That's how we do it.
But if you lock the coins, aren't you that one person? Go ahead, Todd.
No,
okay, so right. So I say in the case of Rive, and the way you kind of took the question, it was kind of a softball, but you hit it, and now I'm going to take the softball and throw it again, which is that the work that you described is actually what we did at Howard. We worked on the algorithm for what would be a proof of stake, and so what happened is that we processor locked it, right? So if you came in with a big ASIC, you pretty much had no chance. I mean, you had to have a Raspberry Pi, and we just had this progression scheme of what the processor could be. And then with the low power processor, that gave you the greatest chance, in addition to the IP from where you were mining from, in addition to we looked at ways of timestamping everything. So, all right, if this person is doing it, we really tried to lock where the person was mining from. And we penalized folks in China. Fortunately, we penalized African Americans because we didn't know how to separate African Americans out. If you're in North America, how do we know whether you're Black or not? We don't. So we just kind of gave only a 10% chance. So to your point specifically is that we addressed it algorithmically as best we could. Additionally, to your point, if someone comes in with a lot of cash with a low power mining operation that they want to run in Kenya, then they can play us as well.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Wonderful.
You know what? I'd like to go ahead.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. Todd, how do you account for VPNs?
So that's a good question. And we actually don't. The way we do look at it is, unfortunately, if we're not able to make a decision of where you are, we kind of put you in this category of like low percentage of being able to get a coin. Because it's all percentage based. So it's like an algorithm, and then we put a percent on top of that. And so it doesn't really matter if you solve the problem, because your percent can be so low. And so if we're not able to pinpoint where you are, then we assume you aren't and put you in that pool.
All right, we're pretty much out of time for this panel. The panel went really very quickly, and we're not going to solve the proof of stake versus proof of work debate. But as long as mindsets are moving forward to doing things conservatively, you definitely, whether you're in Cameroon or whether, I think WIVE is based fundamentally on the African continent, but specifically in Kenya. There has to be thought to empowering the respective nations of Africa, empowering the respective nations, the people, and combating not only poverty, but building the middle class to be able to bring industry to the respective countries, because that means something to us as African Americans. We can form these type of links across the board. So definitely want to thank, it was way too short. Want to thank our panelists for this presentation. We'll give a brief discussion on sustainability in terms of blockchain. Hopefully we put to rest the myth that even proof of work Bitcoin, the way it originally was, is infinitesimal compared to what the energy uses of central banking, and certainly, of course, to the space commercialization of the space program. In terms of, and then as things move forward, this idea of using renewable energy sources of solar, wind, damming, it's definitely going to affect all the computing industries as we move forward. So again, Todd, Karen, Olayinka, Adrienne, and Charles, thank you for this panel presentation.
Thank you.
Few minutes. Okay, I think we're
I hope I see you guys in Ghana. I hope to see you guys in Ghana in December.
Oh, what's happening in Ghana in December?
The African Diaspora Development Institute is hosting the African Trade Expo, Wakanda Trade Expo, at the Cape Coast in Ghana. One of the kings of Ghana has offered land, especially to African American people, to come back and become part of the Cape Coast. It's one of the key movements that's driving our people back to the continent for ownership of property in the city that will be built with our own vision as our people, with our own investment. So we're hoping that we could bring all the tech savvies from the US, from the Caribbean, from Africa, that we could all meet and exchange value on the continent. So we really look forward to seeing brilliant people like you on the continent, because we're saying that we together should build the Africa we want to see in the future. Yeah.
Hey, Charles, can you send us, at least get that information out to us so we have it? Because
I'll
I'd
be
like to
more than happy to. Yeah.
Okay, appreciate it. And I don't know if Deirdre and you can coordinate that or not, but it'd be great to have that information.
Yeah, definitely send the information out. We actually have a little bit more time. So I know, Karen, you were trying to buzz in before earlier. There was something that you wanted to say on this issue.
Well, it was just on, like, when I look at blockchain and how it's presented, like if somebody was coming to look at this conference, it's kind of back end, a lot of the information, and it could really kind of scare people off, and it can make us the whole construct is kind of elitist. And remember, our power as African people is that we were able to kind of embrace everyone and not turn everybody off. And so I think we have to have maybe the role of education, also people or designers, UX designers and artists. And that's what I really like about the NFTs, is that now you start to have once you start getting the creative element as an African people, that's our strength. And that's where when we combine the creativity with the technology, that's where we can make it more practical, and we're very practical people. Technology is just a tool. It is not the end goal. It is just a tool. So I hope in our talks, we kind of talk to certain levels of people, so because we don't want to turn people off, and we want to get more people, because it'll only be powerful the more people get involved with it.
Yeah, NFTs is one of our presentations, certainly one of the last panels of the day. Adrienne, did you want to add something based on your experience?
Just very quickly to the conversation that Todd and Charles were having. And to me, really, that's a governance discussion around how do you control sort of I'd say the market share And so if you, I would just want you to consider like a zero trust model, right, on the cybersecurity side. In other words, deny all until you understand, right, which is really what Todd is saying. I kind of put you off to the side some kind of way, right? But you can do that electronically and architecturally, right? But really think about how a zero trust model could apply to the way that you're managing your Bitcoin and your exchange. So think about that, because there are principles out there that are probably outside of sort of where you're looking, but if you could begin to apply those, I think that's an interesting concept, and that's the only thing I would leave.
Adrian, can you explain the zero trust model?
Yeah, it's really not. So normally what you do on a network is you allow people to come in. You just grant them access, right? You may get a little bit of information from them. Zero trust really says, no, I deny you till I really understand who you are, and I actually send you through a couple of hoops. I put in place an actual automated process for me to clearly understand who you are and for you to actually make yourself visible to me. Because again, as Olayinka was saying, you can go with VPNs, you can have a cluster of machines behind a VPN. It looks like one little thing, but it's actually a monster, amount of compute behind that VPN, right? So that is going to happen. And that is the way that scientists have been, computing for years, right? That's their model. So we really need to think about how those different models could apply to the way that Bitcoin is being sort of rolled out to our community. And I'm really talking about our community because, again, Deirdre, I do agree that there is going to be this issue of how do you have market disruptors even within your environment, and they will either visibly make themselves present, or like you said, they'll slow walk you, right? And then automatically, next thing you know, there's somehow they're managing the way that your business is being conducted. So we have to always, I'm a security guy, so I always think about that context. But I'll send you guys some more information on zero trust and all that, but that's a big thing to kind of just consider.
Yeah, I think as an outsider too, as a, African American, just speaking to Charles in general, I wouldn't expect to go to Cameroon and expect to use, something that's franc based or something that's euro based or something like that. I would love to see that. I have whatever I have, my crypto or whatever, and I have to exchange to something that's beneficial to Cameroonians, regardless of what type of linguistic side that they're on. But you want to see this kind of economic growth, because once you have this economic growth going on in the continent and the Caribbean, then it frees up a lot of us in the Americas, because we want to, in the American side, we have a lot of our African American farmers that are disadvantaged, even though we have the longest agricultural history and brought agricultural wealth. We brought rice, we brought, sugar cane in the Caribbean. We brought all these things from Africa, and yet we get shortchanged every time when it comes to funding. So if it comes to the point where the only way to save African American farmers is that they can directly link with farmers in the Cameroon and have some type of thing, some type of supply chain is related to that, we want to be able to see that happens, because right now we're being played African American farmers into non-existence, because it doesn't benefit the greater American ecosystem, that there's a demographic of Black farmers, compared to, white male farmers throughout the Americas. So we're fighting for our existence. The stronger our Caribbean ties and our African ties are, the more beneficial that our own farming and stuff can change and meld and be able to be suppliers to even, American commercial systems. So, I wouldn't, just be mindful that, you want to protect your base so we can protect our base, and we can form those type of lines.
That's why I see cryptocurrency and blockchain as a massive solution for people of African descent, for people especially in Africa. I look at it as an equalizer. Why? Because in Africa, what we're dealing with all soft currency. My CFA in Cameroon is connected to the French franc. The cedis in Ghana, and all that money is soft currency. You cannot even do cross-border trading on the continent. Already, that's a big challenge we're facing. And then also, if we take our currency out of the continent, it has no value. But whereas you can drive a dollar, you can drive a euro all the way to Africa, and you can do whatever you want. So we're trying to say, let's use blockchain intelligently. We're trying to even include on our own blockchain framework, we're trying to include Visa. We're trying to make it possible, whereas the people can use Visa as a method to get in and get out. And so that way we will be able to, you could leave America, travel to Ghana or Kenya, and you could spend. You could spend without necessarily going through the headaches that you had to go through because of the centralized manipulative measures that have been put in place to keep us divided and conquered using finance. So we are looking at those blockchain as a solution, and we're praying that Africa understands the value of blockchain as a solution for accountability of their assets and even for transactions moving forward. So that's where we're coming at this with our own, especially as a Black African blockchain platform. We're thinking we have to work together and bring all of our people, because our community is our power. We have the numbers. We have the numbers in the Caribbean. We have the numbers in Africa. Then we have the land. Okay. We want our people to come back to I want you to come to Africa, come to Cameroon, come to Ghana, come to those countries and build farms.
Okay, with that, I want to close out the panel because I'm getting an alert that we're a little bit over time now when we were under time before. Thanks again to these panelists, and we're going to move on to the next panel. Thank you.
Hey, Deirdre, can I say? Yes. Can I just give one thing? I want you to look at this infrastructure bill that the U.S. is putting out. There is so much. We talk about reparations. The reparations are in that bill. HBCUs, $45 billion sitting in that bill. So I'm telling you right now, we gotta be thinking about stop chasing money when money is actually in the budgets right now. So small businesses, you must engage and go in and run and get that money because there's money there.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.